Hey everyone, ready to unlock some serious inner strength.
I'm in.
Today, we're diving deep into a motivational podcast episode, also called Inner Strength, featuring a host, Ali, and self-development expert, Sara.
I actually listened to that one. It was good.
Yeah, it really got me thinking about intrinsic motivation, that drive that comes from within.
Totally. It's like, how do we tap into that wellspring of motivation that's already inside of us?
Exactly. And they had some really interesting points about that. Like, they started by defining self-motivation, and it wasn't just about thinking positive thoughts all the time.
Right, because that's not always realistic.
It's more about, aligning your actions with your values and aspirations.
Yeah, like having a purpose driving you forward. It's not that you're ignoring the negative, but you're using your internal compass to get through challenges, right? Makes me think of the self-determination theory.
And what's that?
So it suggests that we're naturally driven towards growth when we feel a sense of autonomy, like we have a choice.
Oh,
And also a sense of competence, like we can actually achieve what we set out to do, and relatedness, feeling connected to something bigger than ourselves.
I like that. So it's like a sense of purpose.
Exactly. And it made me think about that example Sara gave about her project that totally flopped.
Oh, yeah, early in her career. Instead of letting it derail her, she used it as, fuel.
Which is so powerful.
That whole idea of failing forward really hit home for me.
It's like she flipped the script on failure, viewing it as a stepping stone instead of like a roadblock.
And figuring out what went wrong so she could do better next time.
It's like turning a setback into like a setup for greater success.
And that ties into the importance of understanding your why, right?
God.
That core purpose that fuels your motivation. It's like what gets you up in the morning.
Yeah, like when you're clear about your why, you've got that internal compass.
Guides you through anything, yeah.
Exactly. It's about connecting with that deeper level of meaning behind your actions.
So then how can someone actually figure out their why?
That's the million-dollar question right there.
It's not always easy to put into words.
Right, and the episode really digs into that. Like, Sara, she suggested deep self-reflection, asking yourself the tough legacy do you want to leave behind?
What really matters at the end of the day?
Yes. What are those things that truly matter to you at your core?
It's like you're trying to uncover those core values, right?
Yeah, like digging for buried treasure.
Totally. And sometimes what you find surprises you.
It's not always about what we think should motivate us, right?
And it's more about what actually lights that fire.
Exactly. And I think for a lot of people, that fire gets kind of like buried under expectations and, everyday life stuff.
Oh, 100%. Actually, it reminds me of a time when I felt totally stuck. And I was like, what am I even doing? And I realized what was missing was a connection to something bigger than myself.
That's huge. There's real power in identifying those intrinsic motivators, like you were saying.
Because then when things get tough,
And they will.
they do. It's that sense of purpose that kind of pulls you through.
Right. Absolutely. It's like having that lifeline when you're going through a storm.
It's so true. Sara, in the episode, she talked about facing a major setback in her business and how important it was to remember her why.
Oh, yeah. I remember that.
Yeah.
It wasn't like she just brushed it off like, oh.
No, she got real about it, right?
Totally. She was like, yeah, I was bummed. I questioned everything.
But she had that why to come back to, right?
Yeah.
That passion for helping others.
Which is what it's all about.
Totally. And it allowed her to reframe that failure as a stepping stone, not the end of the road.
And this is where failing forward becomes such a game changer.
So good. So it's not about purposely failing.
No. It's about changing how we view those setbacks, seeing them as data points. Like, okay, what can I learn from this?
So each mistake is an opportunity to grow.
Yeah. Embrace the messiness of it all.
Love that. But it takes guts, right? Because it's easier to stay in your comfort zone.
100%. But it's often outside of that comfort zone where we really thrive and, reach our full potential.
So how do we balance this whole failing forward thing with the fact that, failing can be scary?
It's such a good question because it's real. Like, failure can be painful. We're not trying to act like it isn't.
So it's not about being, immune to the feel.
It's about developing that emotional intelligence, to ride those waves.
Having the self-awareness to recognize when fear is holding you back. and finding those healthy ways to work through it.
Exactly. And this is where things like mindfulness can be so helpful, right? Or having a strong support system, a mentor, a coach, whatever works for you.
It's like building up that inner resilience muscle.
And that resilience, guess what? It's tied back to our why.
Of course it is. Everything comes back to the why.
It's a deeper connection to your purpose that helps you get back up again.
Like your why is that solid ground, when everything else feels shaky.
Exactly. It's that anchor that keeps you grounded.
Yeah.
And one thing I thought was really interesting, they talked about legacy in this episode.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Like Sarah challenged listeners to think about, what impact do you want to make?
Not just like what you achieve, but the difference you make for others.
Yes. What's your story going to be? And I thought that was such a cool way to look at it.
It's like shifting your focus from like external validation to a deeper sense of fulfillment.
Right. Like, what are you putting out into the world?
And it all ties back to like everything we've been talking about, finding that internal motivation, learning from those setbacks, and understanding that why that keeps you moving forward.
It really does. It's about recognizing that real success, it's not a finish line, It's an ongoing journey.
Totally. And on that note, we've reached the end of our deep dive into inner strength. But like you said, it's a journey.
Definitely. So we'd love to hear your thoughts.
What resonated with you? What steps can you take like right now to tap into that inner strength?
What's your why?
Think about it. Let that be your guide. And until next